I'm so excited for Rundown 4. What the fuck? Please don't take me back. I don't wanna keep playing Rundown 3.
I see sleepers. Let them snooze.
A1 is the introductory level in every rundown. It's fun, it's pretty, and it's fair for new people. But there's one main issue in this one that I want to cover, which extends to A2 partially. Why is there no scouts in high? What the f— Prior to layer difficulty, there was always a scout on the A levels. So not only you were forced to deal with them, but you were forced to deal with the scout wave if you messed up. But on R4A1, there's no scout whatsoever in the main area. Only in the extreme sector, which in my opinion is bad because there's so many good places to put a scout in to let new people actually learn about scouts. Like in this area right next to the high bulkhead key, when there's a lot of space for them to snipe them or try to hammer it. Or in this area, which has a lot of computers and walls where you can break line of sight with the tentacles, so they can actually take their time when hunting the scout. Or anywhere else really. A2 main suffer for the same issues as A1. There can be scouts on main, but more often than not there's none, because it's dictated by RNG, which kinda hurts new players when they find them on B1, especially right at the end. Also, A2 suffers, I believe, from a pacing issue since the map is hilariously big and is not really populated by a lot of sleepers. I know it's an A level, but for a map that big, I think they will get away with spawning more stuff around the map. So it will make the stealth part a little bit less boring. My main issue with this level comes from the overload zone, which is this little door over here, and I'll show you why. There is no reason why this should be happening on an A level. I'm okay with forward spawning on a B or C tier level, but I'm completely against on an A level where people are just getting the hang of it. Better way to do this, in my opinion, will be adding the 2 scouts in 241A and removing all the back rooms altogether, so the game will spawn stuff behind the squad instead of inside the zone, so if the scout trigger is within their control and it's gonna be their mistake. The mission is pretty straightforward. I hate fog as much as the next guy, but I have to be fair with the level. The level gives you all the tools necessary to deal with the fog, and if you don't like stealth, well, you'll suffer quite a bit. And you'll mostly die if you play recklessly. The reactor part is fine, as long as you know where to hold, and probably the only issue with the reactor part is that there's no indication that the mother is in the last room, so if you rush into that room or you accidentally shot or you hold there for some reason, you basically die. Especially on first playthroughs where you don't even know that the mother was there to begin with. B2 is probably the most misunderstood level in the entire rundown. The gimmick is that with each cell, the fog at the top drops down. Some people actually thought that was a bug, which gave me quite a chuckle, honestly. The PE version of the map is the intended way of playing it. Once you learn the error alarm timer and you time your pushes right, 80% of the level just gets done in less than 5 minutes. The RNG is really consistent, so often than not you're not gonna go into the mother room where the blood door is, and it's really replayable. B3 is long for no reason, just one hallway after the other. The only fun part of the level is just the overload zone, which introduces the S1 alarms. The extreme version is just one bootleg search alarm after another, and the whole level is just filler. On the other hand, C1 is a decent level. I just wish the introduction to the tank felt more personal rather than putting an error alarm to it. It would be a lot better if they made the same intro as R3B2, in which the mother was sitting in the middle of the room with gloomy lighting and all that good stuff. Meanwhile, the tank is like just vibing. He's just sitting in there. He's just chilling, straight up. He's just standing up, doing his thing. Fighting the tank is really fun. It's really action-packed, but when you go on pubs and try to host a game, 99% of the majority of people just try to mind strat the poor guy and just kill it in one hit, which is a little bit disappointing, especially this far into the rundown. I touched these two levels in particular just to talk about uplinks. My main problem with uplinks is the fact that they're placed on really good positions or in a really awkward position. Like on B3, you can get the first terminal on the good terminal that's on a single door and you can just seafoam it or just hold in there pretty easily, or you can get it on the bad terminal, which is really bad because you have two entrances and they can spawn anywhere in front of you. Before I start on C1, I wanna thank my friend Doc for giving me an AutoCAD sketch of R4C1. As you can clearly see, is accurate. Which leads me to C1, which is probably the biggest insult in here. With having the good terminal will make the extreme sector extremely easy, but having the bad terminal makes it a hell on earth situation, in which you have to cover 3 entrances plus charger spawns, and they can spawn on 4 different places in that sector, which is honestly super asinine. Even R4A1 had better and more fair terminal placement than any of these levels, which is a disappointment because during R2 the uplinks maps were really fun and they were fair on their placement. There really isn't anything wrong with the level. The level is supposed to be fully explorable and it lets you do that freely. It's a level that gives you options in which path you want to take, and it's also the introduction to the Shadow Scouts, which is a really good variant. The ending is exciting and fun, especially if you're doing PE, but there are many moments of downtime within that level and it slows down the game quite a bit. C2 is big and it shows, but it can feel like a time sink if you fail a couple of times when attempting the level, especially on first playthroughs. C3 suffers from the let me do difficulty on the last objective type of game. Suddenly shit goes from 0 to 100 real fucking quick. You went from stealthing rooms to suddenly fighting chargers to fighting a tank that's inside a tiny ass room. What? How did that guy got in there in the first place? What? And once you reach the high bulkhead key, the game suddenly becomes pulling the room simulator, in which you just pulling rooms left and right. You don't even have to stealthily kill this guy, you just shoot it. And the alarm. Jesus Christ, that alarm. It's just a soup of sleepers everywhere. You have to shoot to survive. If you stop shooting there, you just wipe. I really enjoy these type of alarms that are all over the place. Everything is messy and it's just overall fun, but for having that difficulty spike just hit you out of nowhere, especially in the last 20 minutes of the game, doesn't really help the pacing at all. D2 is probably the most versatile map in the rundown. It caters to different playstyles, so if you wanna hold, you can easily hold, and if you wanna kite, you have more than ample space to do it. Of course, if you're doing PE, kiting is not really a good idea, since you at most you have 30 minutes to get to the last zone before the fog reaches the top side. And fighting the tank in the fog is not really fun in a way, unless you have 4 repellers, but even then you have 2 minutes to kill them. I kinda wish the overload zone was expanded more, like in the extreme sector. Maybe add a shadow giant here and there, because there's no shadow giants in there. Because if you can hammer well, you can easily just dispatch of those shadow scouts. R4E1 is the toughest level this rundown. It drops you in a tank error alarm that spawns 1 tank every 4 minutes, and if you're too slow to kill him, it can stack up to 5 times. Then you gotta push through a hybrid infested zone and do 3 sets of S1 alarm, only to put 2 cells in a generator cluster, which lowers the fog. Infectious fog, mind you. The first 25 minutes of the level forces you to communicate with your team, have good resource management, and the most important part, your patience. The shadow part is usually really tense, but it's quite fun, knowing that one mistake can throw the run out of the window, and hammering the scouts is usually not that bad. The boss fight with the queen and the tank is a lot of fun. Like, there's so many ways to deal with it, it's just fun. And the most intense part of the level is just extraction, with the big charger spawning every 20% of the scan. It's just crazy. The extreme sector of the level is a reactor, but it's the reactor. It's designed for you to fail and push your limits on how well you and your team coordinate with each other. Getting the code is the hardest part, because you have to sneak by 4 mothers, deal with a bloodthor all by yourself, and try to sneak by regular shadows and scouts. Holding the reactor wave isn't so bad, but you have to be accurate with your guns to not waste ammo, and having a guy transfer ammo packs and med packs and tool is just crucial to holding the wave as long as possible, so you can give time to the guy who's getting the codes. I was not expecting a E tier this rundown, but I'm really happy that we got one. And that's it. This is my review of the rundown 4 contact, and just keep in mind that this is solely based on my opinion and my experience with the whole rundown, and I hope you enjoy it. See you next video.